Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center RGB Sunday online service from a new and different location. You know, I like to change things up all the time. I would like to begin by telling you that Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. We are an all-inclusive spiritual community, and we honor and respect all paths to God, and we implement and we take in ideas from different paths and implement them into our theology, our metaphysics. So you're welcome to come anytime once we open again, whenever that is. So I'd like to start with announcements. First, I want to thank the prayer chaplains that showed up last Wednesday at the World Day of Prayer for us locally. Thank you very much for that. Classes. We have classes now almost every day. Monday there is a class facilitated by Reverend Beverly Pryor from Unity Caravelle, and it is called The Universe is Calling, and that is at 6 o'clock. On Tuesday, there's a class that I lead called Let's Get Metaphysical. That's at 7 o'clock. And then on Wednesday, Reverend Jay does a class called Love 101, and I want to say it's 6:30 or 7, I'm not sure. And then on Thursday, the ARE group meets at 6:30, and then the collaborative meditation meets at 8. You can check all this on our newsletter. It's all listed on there, and also on the splash page of the website. What else? As I said before, we're accumulating a lot of magazines and stuff at the center. So on Thursdays when Lynn is there, if you want to come by and pick a few up, please feel free to do that as well. What other announcement may they be? I don't know. So I guess we'll just leave it at that. Let's begin this morning by centering ourselves in prayer of healing, of wholeness. And let's just visualize yourself and this community, and in fact the entire world, engulfed in wholeness. And just take in that, and they say, I'm whole, I'm complete. And so it is. I would like to start now next with the Unity Invocation, which is shared around the planet for all Unity services. There's only one presence, one power active in the universe and in my life, God the Good, Omnipotent.
Repeat after me. I am God's love.
God's love.
I am God's love.
God's love.
I am God's power.
God's power.
I am God's power.
God's power.
I am God's presence.
God's presence.
I am God's presence.
God's presence.
I am God's light.
God's light.
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 Wherever I am, God is. And all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
Wherever I am, God is.
God is.
And all is well.
And all is well. And all is well.
I am
I am
God's love.
God's love. I am
God's love.
God's love.
I am God's power.
God's power. I am
God's power.
God's power. I am
God's presence.
God's presence. I am
God's presence.
God's presence.
Wherever I am,
God is.
and all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
Wherever I am,
God is.
God is.
And all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
And all is well.
Join me now in Unity RGB affirmation and vision statements. Unity RGB is an expanding center of the Christ light, mighty to attract its good and radiate good to others. Centered in God, we express the indwelling Christ.
We have come together as a family. We come here as we are. We have come with arms wide open. We gathered here in love. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Raise the roof with shouts of praise. Spirit's in this place. We sing in celebration. We sing with words of prayer. We affirm all life as sacred. We declare that peace is here. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Spirit is in this, Spirit is in this place. Raise the roof with shouts of praise. Spirit's in this place. Spirit's in this place.
As we start this time of inner reflection, let's begin by getting comfortable. Remove all objects from your lap, place your feet on the floor, and sit up comfortably in your chair. Relax the muscles in your face, shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. Feel your hips, legs, feet, and toes relax as well. Release any areas of tension you feel in your body. Take a deep, centering breath. Slowly inhale, gently hold for a few seconds, and then slowly exhale. Repeat a few times. Focus on your inhalation and exhalation as you continue to relax your body. Gently breathe in and out. Just relax and breathe naturally. You now feel the increased sense of relaxation to your body with every breath. Feel calmness and peace wash over you. Now let's center our attention to the daily word for today, which is love. Our Bible verse is from 1 John 3:18 and reads, "Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in action and truth." Today's affirmation is, I open my heart in love. Let's say that together once. I open my heart in love. Our message reads, I express the love I feel in my heart by showing my affection and giving nurturing attention. I speak loving, positive words and let those I care about know how much they mean to me. As my words affirm their goodness, beauty, and intelligence, I watch those qualities bloom like flowers blessed by sunshine. I extend my arms and embrace my family and friends with the warmth and comfort of unconditional love. I support my loved ones with compassion and care on their journey through life. I share my wisdom as I teach, my experience as I advise, and my understanding as I console. I pray for those I love, knowing that the Christ within them is the light that guides them everywhere they go and in everything they do. I am grateful for my role in my loved ones' lives. Now let's close our eyes and take these words and this affirmation into the silence.
Down in my soul, I love the silence. Down in my soul, I love the silence. Down in my soul. Got a new day down in my soul. I've got a new day down in my soul. I've got a new day down in my soul, and the whole wide world is my home.
It's time to introduce today's speaker, and that would be me. Good morning once again. Today's lesson is part 2 of the book Finding Yourself in Transition, Using Life's Changes for Spiritual Awakening by Robert Brummett, a Unity minister. As I said before, if you look at the title backwards, it may be a little bit easier to understand because from that angle it reads, Finding Spiritual Awareness During Times of Transition. Now it goes without saying that we are living in a time of transition, and it's pretty major. It's coming at us from all angles. We have unceasing pandemic, we have social unrest, racial injustice, we have a political division that has rendered our democracy inept, we have an economy that is faltering, we have people who are without food and jobs being evicted from their homes, we have raging wildfires, we are on track for more hurricanes in one season than ever. It goes on and on. It seems everything is in complete disarray. Take a deep breath. On the upside, Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. We teach the world is unfolding into a new and higher consciousness. Unity Online Radio's tagline is the voice of an awakening world. I think we are all about ready to wake up from this nightmare, this transition. For people who are not familiar with our Positive Unity message, given the state of current affairs, the idea that a higher consciousness is awakening is not an entirely easy ticket to sell right now. But Scripture tells us, judge not by appearance, but by righteous judgment. That means don't judge a book by its cover. It means to look beyond what appears to be to that which lies beyond the appearance. It means that when it's storming outside, the sun is still shining, even though you can't see it. In part 1 of the book, Reverend Grummett notes that the book has 2 objectives. The first is to offer an alternative model for navigating through life's transitions, sort of a roadmap. The second is to come to the realization that a major life transition is an opportunity for transformation, an opportunity for spiritual rebirth. The book is divided into 3 sections. The first discusses the general nature of change. The second, which is today's, looks at the individual components of the transition process and parallels each with the biblical story of the Exodus and the journey of the Israelites from their bondage in Egypt into the promised land of Canaan. Part 2 of the book covers the following topics: endings, departure from Egypt, the void, wandering in the wilderness, and the new beginnings, the promised land. Well, let's jump in. This starts with chapter 4, called Endings. This week on Facebook, I saw something that someone posted, a quote from Lao Tzu that stated, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." Well, that's recognizable. We've all heard it said, when one door closes, another opens. That's how life is. And if there's anything to look beyond with an idea, that would be it, because changes are inevitable. T.S. Eliot wrote, "What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start. So every start has its beginning in an ending." Problem is, Reverend Grummett says, most of us don't handle endings very well. We have a tendency to understate or overstate the importance of the ending, he says. Now, what does that mean? Well, for example, understating would be to say, let's forget about it. Forget about the past, let's just get on with things. He says the problem with this is that it has a tendency to deny our true feelings about the ending. I think we've learned from several speakers that part of the healing process is to acknowledge what is in order to move to the next phase of life. Coming to terms with the ending, in other words. Overstating would be to believe that we can't go on without this person, that job, that this, whatever it was that we have lost, that has ended for us. So we must come to terms with the ending and remember that every ending affords us an opportunity to expand our awareness, to move into a higher consciousness by way of the new beginning. Endings and beginnings are like breathing in and breathing out. They go hand in hand. The 5th chapter of the book is titled Departure from Egypt. Obviously, this is a reference to the Hebrew scripture story of the Israelites' escape from Egypt. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the story, so let me give you an overview. As you have heard many times, Unity's interpretation of scripture is to see it as symbolic of each of our personal spiritual journeys. Simply put, that means that the true significance of the stories is not that it happened to some people, but that it happens to all of us. And more importantly, that these experiences happen to us over and over. Sometimes in bigger scales, sometimes in just tiny little, very small scale that you don't even notice. Obviously, the point is to learn from these lessons, from these stories. In overview, the story of the departure from Egypt is a classic story of endings and beginnings. In other words, it is about change. Ecclesiastes tells us that for everything there is a season. In the case of Exodus, it represents a time to move on. Here's what happened. Before going to Egypt, the Israelites had their own land, and they were doing very well. However, it is written that a famine came over the land. But word got out to the Israelites that there was a lot of crop, a lot of money, a lot of work in Egypt. So they ended up leaving that, ending what they had, to begin a new life in Egypt. And things went along very well for some 400 years or so. But what happened? Change happened. Why? Because change happens. For everything, there is a season. What was initially a great situation for the Israelites eventually changed, and they became slaves in Egypt. Moses was instructed by God to lead the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Of course, the Egyptians were not interested in losing their slaves, so the Pharaoh said, no, we're not letting them go. Now, symbolically, you can tell this is classic consciousness, old consciousness, not wanting to give in to new, higher consciousness. But God, higher consciousness, had something else in mind. It is written that God sent a series of plagues to the Egyptians. And it was the 10th plague that finally got the Egyptians to release the Israelis, the Israelites, from the bondage that they had had. So they ended that, and now they initiated a new start. So what was initially awesome for them ended up, and a new start started. Why? Because change happens, and for everything there is a season. This began the Israelites' time in the wilderness. After 400 years in Egypt, the Israelites spent 40 years in the wilderness. Elijah and Jesus both spent 40 days in the wilderness before they started or had their revelation. The book tells us that we are in the void during this time. And if you try to focus on and sometimes we're not ready for that new change. And if you try to force it, it might create more problems than it solves. It says an old generation of consciousness must die before we are ready for the next step. Because we are continually unfolding spiritually, every state of consciousness we go through ultimately serves its purpose. But we must always give way to a new and higher consciousness. The purpose of Moses was to lead his people from bondage through the wilderness and to the edge of the promised land. Moses had served his purpose, and it was time for a new leader, a new consciousness, Joshua, to lead the way. One of the book reminds us that when we want to think that the end is quickly followed by the beginning, in fact, sometimes it is followed by the void, when we are neither here nor there. We're in between things, kind of like we are right now. Sometimes this is referred to as being in the fall. I think many of us feel that maybe that's where we are right now, myself included. Reverend Robert tells us, the void touches our deepest fears of helplessness and abandonment. Personally, while I'm feeling lately about like being in the hall, I don't really feel hopeless or abandoned. Instead, I'm taking the wait-and-see approach and reminding myself that for everything, there is a season. My new season has simply not begun. I feel like I'm writing a book and I ran out of pins and I ordered some new ones, but they're not here yet. I'm waiting for the order to come in so I can continue the next chapter. In the meantime, we just do a little wandering, and in the wilderness, we make the best of it. Spending time in the wilderness is a big and recurring theme in Scripture. As I mentioned, all the major spiritual teachers in the Bible spent time in the wilderness before receiving that revelation, that spiritual awakening. So consider this a time as being in the wilderness, and that what awaits for us is the promised land. So next time you feel like you are wandering in the wilderness, consider yourself in good company. Moses, Elijah, Jesus. It means big things are coming for this country and for this planet. One final thought. The promised land is not external. It is completely internal. Reaching the promised land is finding spiritual awakening through the trials of the transitions in your life, if you use them towards that end. Otherwise, prepare to remain in the wilderness. I will continue with part 3 next time. Now comes the time when we offer our tithes and our gifts and our offerings. And remember that we want to keep Unity RGB going. We don't know how long we're going to continue this, and obviously, it's one of those out of sight, out of mind things. I don't have to tell you, but I will, that the offerings have dropped. And so we reach out and say, and remind you that the more you give, the more you receive. Now, there's different ways of making payments. In the newsletter and in the splash page, Lisa set up a pay tree. It's got Venmo, Cash App, whatever it is, PayPal, and of course you can always send a check, and all the information is there. So we take that information and together we say, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. So it is.
Everything I see, everything I do is blessed by your hand, God. I'll give it back to you. Everything I give, every thought that's true is magnified in kind, God. I'll give it back to you.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Let's end with the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a blessed week. Be safe. Wash your hands. Wear masks. Social distance. So that we can get over this transition. Do your part. Thank you.